Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth George, Director of Member Engagement and Chapter Development with the American Guild of Organists, and I am so pleased to invite you to a highly anticipated webinar, The Do-Re-Mis of Website Design. Before I introduce our panelists, I always go over a couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar, just like all of the AGO webinars, is being recorded. It will probably take about 48 hours to download it, upload it onto our YouTube website, and include it under the Education tab in the webpage past AGO webinars and supporting documents. And once it is there and ready to be viewed, I will send out an email to all of our chapter officers with the link of where you can see it. You are muted, but we do want to hear from you today. So please use the Q&A icon that's located at the bottom of your screen. You can see it there. You can post your questions there. I'm going to be moderating. And what we will probably do for the format today is our two presenters will go through their presentations, and then we will open up for Q&A. So today's presenters are indeed techno wizards. Harold Stewart, CAGO, is chair of the AGO's Technology Committee. He's an engineer that specializes in cryptography and privacy and has worked for several well-known companies in Silicon Valley. He recently relocated to Utah, not far from Salt Lake City, where he composes, teaches organ lessons, and plays the organ. Michelle Thomas is dean of the St. Petersburg chapter of the AGO. She is the young organist member on the Technology Committee and seeks to make technology relevant and accessible to all who need it. So without further ado, Harold, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. And thank you for the nice introduction. So I'm going to be talking today about hosting a website. I'm going to give some basics on it. And then Michelle's going to drill deeper into the design of a good website. And once she's done talking, I'll come back with some closing words. Okay. All right, so let's talk about hosting a website. There are some things that you have to do in order to host a website properly. The first one is click on the right window so your screen advances. There we go. So to host a website properly, the first thing you have to do is select a webmaster. Then you need to make the website. Select a domain name for your website. The domain name is something like agohq.org or Amazon.com. Those are in technical terms called domain names. And we'll talk about that. You need to choose a hosting company for your website. These are the people that actually put your website on the internet. You need to create your content using the tools that that hosting company provides. And if we get a chance, we'll talk about managing email, but we may not get to that today. My apologies, I should have pulled that off the slide. All right, your webmaster. This person does not have to be a technical expert, but they can't be afraid of computers either. They have to have time to manage a website. It is a lot of work to manage a website. I recently became the website webmaster for the Salt Lake City chapter, there we go. And I've been amazed at how much I have to do to keep things running correctly. So they have to have a little bit of time to get things going. They have to be able to deal with medium levels of stress. As I said, it's a lot of work and there can be some complications. And even for someone like me who has been doing technology and had a job as an engineer since he was 15, computers can be stressful and frustrating. So you need someone who can deal with those medium levels of stress. And finally, they need to have good communication skills. In my job as webmaster, I talk to people from the guild, I answer questions, I respond to emails that are sent to the website, and you have to be able to have someone who can answer questions, be tactful, represent your chapter well, and also be able to deal with the key stakeholders in your chapter, the dean, members of the board, etc., because these are the people that are going to be driving the content that is placed on the website. So now let's talk about making a website. You have to choose a domain name. You want a domain name that is, for lack of a better term, just kind of just right. Um, you want a name that is short and easy to remember. So let me give you some examples here. Green Lake Chapter of the American Guild of Organists.org is a really, really bad domain name. At the beginning of the internet boom, there was in San Mateo, California, where I was working at the time, someone who used their phone number as their domain name. I don't think that lasted very long because people couldn't remember the company or their phone number. So we have to be careful what we do. Greenlakechapter.org is better, but it doesn't really describe you very well. You can get away with that if you are Amazon or Apple, very well known, but probably you're not going to get away with it as a guild chapter. You might want to consider something like agogreenlake.org because that tells people enough information to get them to your website. Then you need to choose a good hosting company. These people can handle the domain name management for you. You have to register your domain name. So, you have to register your domain name. You have to make sure that the internet servers, what are called domain name servers, can know about your website so they can tell other people where it is. There are some pluses to that. They can name it. You can do it yourself if you want to. This is the tactic I use for my own websites, but it's really nice sometimes to have the domain name used, have someone else manage the technical details for you. If you register it yourself, it's easy to be more portable. Let's say you want to change hosting companies. The hosting company, you just tell the new hosting company, actually the new hosting company tells you what to put in your domain name server, and it'll just take care of it for you. The problem is you do have to manage it yourself, and it can be a pain to integrate with your new hosting company. On the other hand, if you let your hosting company manage it, integration is easy. You don't have to worry about it at all. But if you ever go to change websites, it can be a pain because they actually own your website, your domain name, and you have to go through a bunch of signatures and forms and things like that to get it to move. And if things don't go correctly, you could be down for a while. So you want to be careful to not do that. It's hard to, in other words, it's hard to be more portable. It makes it difficult. Okay. So once you choose a good hosting company, the primary thing you want is a hosting company that has good technical support because you're going to need it. You want a company that offers a good hosting experience that doesn't make you jump through a lot of hoops to get things up and running. For my own websites, I use WordPress. The WordPress, the company, not WordPress, and WordPress, the software. But there are companies that will offer you WordPress without having to go to WordPress.com. Our Salt Lake City chapter uses one of those, and they do a good job. So WordPress, as I said, is one of the options. There are others like Squarespace or Wix, and they also do a good job. My personal preference, and I have to say this, the Guild obviously doesn't endorse any of these sites, but my personal preference is WordPress because it gives me a lot of fine-grained control. I can kind of do what I need to do. And with that, I'm going to do one of the most dangerous things you do in technology. I'm going to do a live demonstration. So wish me luck. Let's see how this works here. All right, I need to open up a web browser. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my web browser screen now. All right, everybody should be seeing that. I'm going to make a new website. And we're going to call this one the greenvalleyago.org. Actually, we're just going to call it Green Valley AGO because I'm not going to pay for this. So it's just going to be greenvalleyago.wordpress.com. But notice they have options here. I can, for example, customize it so that I have a name that isn't part of WordPress's site. Or you can use a custom thing like greenvalleyageo.blog, and notice that there are varying levels of pricing participation, otherwise known as some are more expensive than others. So you have to be very judicious. I think probably something in the .org domain or .info domain will work really well for you. And they're not as expensive as some of these others. So let's see here now. We'll continue. The next thing you want is to choose your design. This is really important because this is how people access your website. And you'll notice there's all kinds of designs that WordPress offers you here. You want something that kind of matches what you do as a guild. For example, let me show you one that probably won't work as well. Let's take a look at this one. We are not showing a bunch of sample images as a guild website. So the one I would probably choose for a guild website is this one. Then we have a font pairing, and I think that Michelle will talk more about that, but we will pick one that we really like here. That'll work. And this is all about the look and feel of your website. People get used to the way that your website looks. And so you want to have something that people find attractive and that becomes kind of like part of your brand. Okay. And then they're going to take opportunities to sell me things. I mean, WordPress.com is a business, and they'd really like to have more of my money. But for our purposes, we'll just skip those. And then they want me to pay for the privilege of hosting on their website, but I'm not going to. We're going to choose free. And to show you my dedication to the guild, when I did this in rehearsal, for 3 days afterwards, I got tons and tons of mail from WordPress trying to sell me more features. So I'm going to go through that experience again, and it's okay. All right, so now we can customize this. And I'm a big fan of exclamation marks. So and let's see, student. Okay, and this looks good. And we are going to be greeted by this. This is going to be our homepage, and everyone will see this. And notice a lot of the work that would have been a pain has already been handled for you. It's attractive. Somebody's done the artwork. Somebody's taken care of things. All you have to do is provide your content. Then up here at the top, we have preview, update, and launch. I'm not going to press launch because I don't want this going out, but we can look at it and we'll see. This is what it would look like if someone came to your website. Okay. All right. And with that, I need to share my other screen here now. So here are some things to think about when you make your content. Who is your target audience? Is it the professional organist? Is it the amateur organist? Is it a student? Is it in your community? So there's something to think about. Your target audiences are basically your chapter members, members from other guilds or chapters that want to get information from your site. And those who are not members of the AGO, aspiring organists, community members, maybe someone from a local church that wants to hire an organist, people like that. My recommendation is that you choose 1 or 2 target audiences and aim your website at them. Otherwise, you're going to run into the risk of having way too much information on your website, and it will be hard to follow. If you need to go beyond your basic target audience, I recommend putting up a different website. They're not very expensive, and you can target the information so that people can find exactly what they want. How do you present information? So this is an interesting section here. If you don't have enough information on your website, people will ignore it. I learned that the hard way when I first started my website, and I went to friends and said, hey, what does my website look like? And the answer came back was, well, you only had 2 things up, so I just went on. So you probably want to bring up sufficient information when you start, or you'll get ignored. If you have too much information, people will avoid your website because they can't find anything on it. It's almost as bad as not having enough. If the information is out of date, now, as I said, I recently took over a website, and we've got information going back into 2020 on the website. Well, to be fair, COVID has happened, and not much has happened, but you still have to keep it up to date. If it's out of date information, people will forget about your website. But if you have just the right amount of information, people will use your website, and that's what you want. There are some technical considerations to think about. This first example, I have tried to obscure the origin of this Guild website. They have done a very good job. They're doing their best, but this is what it looks like when I call it up from my browser. Not terribly attractive. It's kind of a problem. Well, if I use Chrome, it looks like that. Much, much better. So what happened here? They forgot to test it on multiple browsers. So other questions, does it look good on a portable device, an iPhone or an iPad? Because those have very different requirements. And by the way, that particular chapter, it looks great on an iPhone. So they just don't work well with my particular browser and setup. Tablets, watches, you now have the ability to have your website on something that's maybe no more than a couple of inches wide. And once again, there are different design considerations, and you need to be aware of all of them. Okay. And that's actually where I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
All right, thank you, Harold, and welcome everyone. I have a handout that I'll be providing that will go along with the recording when it is uploaded. So stay tuned. I will go a little bit fast through my pages that I'm going to show you, but just so you know, you will have this list. So you'll be able to take a look and glean some ideas and other information out of that. And so I'm going to go ahead and just go over some general things first. And then we're going to take a look at 11 different chapter websites that I think do a great job in different ways in showcasing all of the information that the Guild would like to have on display. Not only are you considering your audience, those 2 audiences that you're looking at, you have organists and you have organ enthusiasts. Those are really your 2 main groups. And from there, I've dissolved it sort of into 3 audiences here. And it's those who are not AGO members of your community, who are looking for events and things that are happening with your chapter and reasons why they should engage with your chapter. You have those who are AGO members but are not in your chapter. So that can include things like if they're out of town traveling, or if they're on a job hunt and they might be looking at a posting in your area. You're going to want to make sure that you have content that engages with them as well. So maybe organs from around your area, a link to contact your executive board members, things like that. And then you're going to have resources on your website that are for your AGO members, your chapter members specifically. So that'll include a membership directory, which I would encourage everyone to have password protected in some way, since you're giving a lot of personal information. Your classified ads, if you have any, job posts, substitute lists, you get the gist. And most of you have that information on your websites. And so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at those 11 sites that I have selected to display here for you. And I will like to mention that I did go through every single website on our AGO chapter list, and these are in regional order, so they are not in order of you know, most effective to least effective or something like that. They're in regional order. And I just went right down AGO HQ's list of all of the chapters in their websites. So the first one that we have here is the Worcester chapter of the American Guild of Organists. You can see when I hover over their brand at the top, it will take me actually back to their homepage. So if I go to anything over here, say their contact info, which I think it is really important to have a contact page. If we were to go over here, and so we have this contacts link, and this is good if you don't want to necessarily put someone else's email address up here. I suggest using something generic, like perhaps info@worcesterago.org or worcesterago@gmail.com, something like that, to where you're not giving out someone's personal email address unless you have their explicit permission to do so. But that's why a contact form is really, really helpful on a website. And so you can see we have this contact form here that you're able to submit. You have their contact information here. But if I go back up to the top, this same branding is here. And if I click it, it takes you right back to the homepage, which I think is really nice. The homepage here is eye-catching. It has what I would assume is the Worcester skyline, and it says a thriving community of musicians sharing their knowledge and inspiring passion for the organ. And having some sort of a title, a homepage that greets you with just enough information to welcome you to the page, but not too much to where you're scrolling to find information. It is my personal opinion, and I'm sure others would share this who are involved in communications type jobs, that it's easier to have tabs and have a really logical sense of organization with your website than to have one long homepage with a lot of information. So you see they have this page, and then they have their just their mission statement and their brand. They have their Twitter feed here. They have contact info. And you can see dean@worcesterago.org. So exactly, that is their generic address there. So they're not giving away any personal information. And then you have these follow buttons that'll take you to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a Flickr photo album. You can also see that they have 3 of these up at the top here in case they're looking around for them. Another good thing about the Worcester AGO page is if you go over to the media here, they have embedded their YouTube links. And so you're able to see some YouTube videos from members. I'm not sure whether this was at one of their members' recitals or something like that, but you can watch it directly on YouTube, or they've embedded it directly on to the website, which I think is a really nice way to showcase the talent of your chapter. Let's go ahead to another AGO chapter here. And I'm going to go a little bit faster through all of these, just sort of picking some things that I find particularly interesting. And over here, we have the Greater Bridgeport AGO. I love their color scheme on this, and they've taken their imagery that they have and complemented their color scheme really well. You can go through and you can see that, again, they have a very brief welcome, a Join Us button, which is nice for membership. And then if you go down here, you can see some recent things that they have going on. They have their next event scheduled right up here. And then all of this formatting is the same color scheme and the same font structure. Another thing that Harold mentioned briefly is font pairings. And so having some sort of a consistent theme to all of your pages is going to be really important. If I go over here, see at the top, their leadership team is the same sort of script font as their welcome page. And then they've complemented this with this non-serif font here, sans serif, with the rest of their text. And so you're going to want to consider that you have really 2 major fonts. Websites that have 5, 10 different fonts really boggles the eye, and it makes it hard to read. And the goal of your website is to convey all of this information successfully in a way that's pleasing to the eye. And so I like the way that they've paired their fonts here. I think it's really elegant looking. They've chosen a nice color scheme, and their icons and everything are just really fluid here. So props to the Greater Bridgeport chapter. Let's go ahead on to another one. The Hartford AGO. And you can see here that they've taken, again, this this title, this banner graphic at the top, their branding, and they have selected fonts and colors to complement that branding. And so you have this green color that's here going back, and you have the chapter events, which I really like down on the side here. That's in a slightly different color, really bringing out the fact that they have events going on, and this is when, and this is where, and this is everything that you need to, or most things that you need to know about it. They have their Dean's Welcome message. Shout out to Michelle Horsley, good friend of mine. And then going down, you have the chapter information, their executive board. They have a YouTube channel that's located right here. And this is a nice, succinct way to display information, not too much, again, very pleasing to the eye. Things like an education tab, really nice. And again, you can see how they've stepped this out and kept in the same theme as their homepage. And again, really nice with their font choices. And I love the imagery over here, highlighting their local programs of study. Consider these resources. You're more than welcome to peruse these AGO chapters more to see the kind of things that they have on their pages. Let's go ahead to another one, our Westchester chapter. And the first thing you see on their homepage is a feature of the organs in their area, which is really unique. I like that very much. And so they're highlighting one of the things that our AGO chapter is here for, our AGO is here for, is the organs, the instruments, showcasing these instruments. And if you click on them, you'll go ahead and take a look at some information that they have. And some additional pictures here. I also like how they have formatted their chapter newsletter. You're able to go in and actually take a look at some archival information from their chapter. Chapter officers, all of that. And with their events, they have a nice layout here, a sort of table style, and some featured events. Let's go ahead over to the Annapolis chapter. And you can see that this is created by WordPress, and I know that from the icon in the upper left-hand corner of my screen. And again, they've done a great font pairing, and they've kept it consistent. So all of their title slides are in this red color. And one of the favorite things about this one in particular is if I go down here to the Become a Member, I love how they have their icons here, and it's bulleted essentially with these icons. And it's a really succinct way to say exactly why people should join the AGO. And of course, that Join Now button. They have a contact, a generic contact at AnnapolisAGO.com. And again, they're find us on Facebook. So utilizing those other social channels and making sure that your website is the central hub for all information. I'm going to go over to Treasure Coast. Again, a really succinct welcome message here. If you click on this, it takes you right back to the home page. We have some scholarship information here. And again, I like the way that they've paired the fonts with a red title and a non-serif font. In terms of their scholarship, who's eligible, how do you apply? You can download the application right here off of the webpage. And then, of course, the contact information. Let's take a look at AGO Atlanta. This is another thing to watch out for. I love the way that they've the way that they've done this, and it's something that you really have to think about when you're using text on an image. You're going to want to make sure that you have a transparent background, or translucent, I should say, translucent background, to make sure that it's not necessarily text on image directly. So the fact that they've taken this rectangle and they have changed what's called the opacity, and they've reduced it so that you can still see the image behind it, but it makes the text more prominent and easier to read, because again, readability is key. We have all of these tabs, and you can see there's a lot of tabs here. You have a long about us, long employment, understanding the job. I'm wondering how many chapters really have something like this on their page. And you can see, even though I've gone to a sub-tab within their website, you have their upcoming events very prominent on the side. Another thing that you should really consider in making sure that the things that you want participation or the things that you want people to go to is always in a very prominent location. I also like how you can see the calendar on here, Wednesday the 28th, and then you have more complete details right on the side. Our Greater Kansas City chapter. You have a search bar up here, which I know we've seen on some other websites previous to this. A search bar is really going to be helpful, again, if people are trying to find information on your page. They have their newsletter and they have their archival section, their events that are coming up. And again, a really nice way that they've laid things out. And let's see here. Yep, again, if I click this, it'll take me right back to the homepage. Knowing your way around a website is going to be really, really informative. And if you find that your website is clunky and you're having to go back to a different homepage, or maybe you're having to go back to the top here and type it in again, you need to have some way of navigating back to the information where you'd like it to be. They have their events calendar and things linked here. They have their upcoming events and join our ranks. I do like that very much. Another thing here is signing up with your email address to receive news and updates. So this doesn't necessarily have to be your chapter newsletter. You can keep that for chapter members, but consider having maybe a different one that you send out for upcoming events and things that you'd like to invite the community to. If they sign up for this, I would imagine it would go to something like Constant Contact or MailChimp if they use those sort of subscription newsletter services. So again, nice job, Greater Kansas City. Let's go over to Houston. The Houston AGO has a nice organization of their website. And again, their color scheme is very consistent throughout. Again, their title image, their front image, I really like how it plays with the different things that they have going on their website. They have very consistent font pairing here. Lots of resources and their chapter. It talks about first-time membership, education, professional concerns. And again, think of the information that you'd like to have on display for your given audience, your AGO members, your non-AGO members. Your chapter directory is here, and you need to log in to view this content. So some content could be member specific, and you can choose to share either a generic password for your membership or have them have individual profiles and individual credentials that they would need. And so then they can contact to get those credentials to access their chapter directory. The Eugene, Oregon chapter, again, a really striking homepage here with very basic information. It is really good to keep your homepage basic. And about us, contact information here, and any upcoming events that they have. And the things that they have going on here. I like how they've kept, again, with the fonts. You can see that, you know, nice, clean, white background. Oh, and I stopped the video loading here, so you can see that they've embedded some sort of video playback. And I love their About section and how that complements the AGO seal at the top. All of this formatting sort of plays off of the AGO seal. And again, a contact button and a join feature. Again, discussing the benefits of your AGO membership. Our publications, professional development. Bullet points, again, are very nice to see. It's increased readability. It makes it not clog up your eyesight when you're trying to sift through information and find exactly what you need. And then the last webpage I'm going to showcase here is the San Diego chapter. Again, a nice, simple version of a website, but if you notice, it has all of the information that you really need. You have your homepage here with the eye-catching image, a welcome with their newsletter, and a calendar right here. Contact us is very prominent, so is a link to their Facebook account. And so with that, I will have this handout available when it's uploaded. Let me go ahead and stop my screen here. I'll have this handout available so you can see these websites, take a look and see what you like and don't like. If there's information on another website that you think might be interesting, go ahead and contact them and see if you can share it on yours as well. You know, the Guild and all of our different chapters are all about uniting together and increasing our awareness and advocacy for the pipe organ. And so don't be afraid if you are a if you are a webmaster for your website, don't be afraid to share information with your Guild members. And if you are a Guild member or another webmaster, don't be afraid to ask for that information. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Harold, and he's going to go through some more website do's and don'ts.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. You did a great job. And I want to talk just in the few minutes we have remaining about the attitude by which you approach a good website. So here are some things to do. First thing you want to be is positive. No matter how you may or may not feel about a particular topic, you need to be positive because people are turned off by negative content. You need to be brief. No matter how much detail you want to give people, people will stop paying attention to you very, very quickly. So you need to go within people's attention span. Update your website frequently. Remember that obsolete websites are ignored. And also, updating comes with removing old information. You might, if you really want to keep old information on your website, you want to keep an archive section somewhere. And then you might want to look at statistics, and I'll bet you'll find nobody looks at the archive. So you want to keep your information up to date. You want to be welcoming to both amateur and professional organists. They are both key clientele of our Guild. And we want to make sure that both of them have content that is useful to them and that both have their needs met. Now, here are some things not to do. Avoid taboo topics. I mean, seems like common sense, but sometimes things happen. Avoid politics and social issues. We are the Guild of Organists. Now, we live in an age of strong opinions, and those are good. We don't have a problem with that. But remember that you as Guild leadership may have opinions about something, but some of your members may not share. This doesn't mean that they're wrong or bad or evil. They just don't share your opinions. But you don't want to have them turn off and leave your chapter. And that has happened, and you want to avoid that. Same thing happens with sports teams, even if they're in your area. I mean, I don't care about football in the slightest. I don't want to do things or anything else for that matter that's not related to the organ. Stay away from it. Also, actually, this is a thing to do. Make sure that people know that their images will be on the website if you're at an event. You can just put it in the program or a sign at the door that says, you know, we're going to be posting pictures of this event. And if you don't really like that, you might want to come and talk to the photographer or somebody so that they'll avoid you. You want to obtain permission from minors to be on your website. So you want their images. You need a signed release from parents or guardians in order to put minor pictures up on the website. Don't publish identifying information like emails or phone numbers without permission. We live in the age of spam, and I know that every person on this call receives lots and lots and lots of junk emails. A lot of that comes because someone has posted your email address on a website without permission. There are other ways they can get at it too, but that's one of the main ones. You want to be very careful to not do that because people don't like spam, and worse yet are scams. And you want to avoid scams And you know, a lot of that comes because people weren't careful with identifying information. And finally, if you can't say something nice on your website, to quote a classic movie, don't say anything at all. Once again, keep your tone positive, keep your content oriented towards the organ, and serve the members of your chapter, and you'll do a great job. With that, I'm going to turn the time back over to Elizabeth for questions. It looks like we even have one. Cool.
Well, we do, but it's actually a very nice compliment from James Thomas, our executive director. Great presentation, Harold and Michelle, marvelous. So thank you, James, for that. But surely there must be some others of you who have questions. Okay, I'm going to ask a dumb question. How do you track how many hits you're getting on your website? Is this something your hosting company does?
That's a fabulous question. And the answer is yes. You're actually, or it's built into your hosting platform. Okay. So I'm going to, for example, show the statistics page for my website. And I can give you an example of that. Maybe. There we go. So when I log in to my website, you'll see that yesterday, for example, I had a lot of people accessing my website, or it would seem over 100 hits on my web pages. This is because I have posted many of the hymns of my faith on the website for people to sing along to because they're having to do church at home. And so Sundays are big days for my website. And you can go even over time, or you can find out, for example, where people are accessing my website from. And let's go to something a little more. So for example, in the last month, I've had hits on my website from the US, China, the UK, Hong Kong, Russia, Canada, France, and India, as an example. And that's yeah, I have quite a following in Ukraine at one time. So.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Okay, I did have a question. We do have a question. Any suggestions for small chapters, not many organs, not many members, few local positions?
Michelle, do you want to take that one?
Yep. So I think that I'm going to say it's still really helpful to have a website. And a main reason for that is, again, you know, if you're helping your members and you can send the newsletter out and you can send email out, but having a place where they can go and find information is really key. And so if it is as simple as one page, having a brief welcome, you know, our list of events is here, contact and sign up for our newsletter here. I think that you might want to really consider having that information. Even if you don't have a newsletter, having your events up there, having, say, a list of churches that you have in your area, having benefits of being a member, connecting to nearby chapters. I know, like with the chapter that I'm in, we do link to some nearby chapters on our website. And so consider the ways that you can spread information and consider the ways that you can further the Guild's mission in getting the pipe organ to all. And I'm sure you have some sort of community events that you'd be doing. So publicizing that and having a place, say, you know, the newspaper, you have an event that's happening in your town at one of the churches. If you have a website to direct them with all of the information there, it'll be really a valuable resource to have. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a domain name. I would highly encourage that you get something like a domain name. But if you just want a website with information, you know, greenvalleyago.wordpress.com is better than having none at all. Harold, would you agree?
I would agree with that. There are still elements of salesmanship and marketing, even for a nonprofit, that you have to deal with.
Okay, now we've got some good questions. All right. What do you recommend? Here's one. What do you recommend for time to keep past performance recordings? Relatedly, how does this work with licensing?
Okay, well, I'm not an attorney, so I would say, however, if you have permission from the performer to post it and the person's been dead over 110 or 120 years, you're probably okay. But once again, I'm not an attorney, and I know that James is on the call, and I certainly don't want to give James panic attacks. But we are very, very fortunate. The Guild has a great national leader in James, and I'm very appreciative that he's there. Um,
And we have a whole
Performances are
webinar on licensing that we did this past July with one license. So,
Oh, fantastic.
so performances are different than other types of content because they hold their value for a long, long time. I like going back. In fact, one of the ways I choose music to learn is I go back and look at other people's performances and say, I'd like to learn that too. So I think you can keep those up indefinitely. In terms of chapter meetings or reports of this or that or the other, they probably have a time value of 2 to 3 months. Now, if this is once again for that leaving them up indefinitely is if it's in the public domain. If the music's in the public domain, that's not going to be a problem. But if you start moving into the non-public domain, you have to be careful, and you probably want somebody better than a software engineer advising you.
Leslie Wolfrob has a comment here. Most copyright owners charge an annual fee for anything to be posted that is under copyright. The best, to my knowledge, no copyright owners will sell you a license in perpetuity. Good comment.
Yeah.
Referencing performance videos above. Okay, let's move on to some other questions here. How do you accept monetary donations securely? Is that another charge from another hosting company?
There are several ways to do that. One is to use PayPal. PayPal has a charitable donation section that they will work with you on. There are others that will, there are a number of ways to do that. And you have to research those and pick one that works for you. But yes, there are ways of doing it. And if you like, for example, with PayPal, they know how to do that job correctly. You know, things are going to be properly encrypted. They're going to take care of your credit card, things like that.
Is it generally the webmaster's responsibility to create content, or is she expected to wait until receiving content from chapter leaders? Boy, I'd like to answer that one.
So I can only give you my own experience. You have members of your chapter that are contributing to the content on the website that have different levels of technical expertise. I think a person with my level of technical expertise is fairly rare in the Guild, although I know there are plenty. But for example, I got my first newsletter to put on the website, and it was formatted as a Word document. And I had to take all of that content and turn it into something that the website understood. And in terms of creating content, sometimes I will get notifications like there's a concert or something like that happening, and I will put those and post them out. And also, you have to screen. You don't want to put just anything out there because, once again, you want to do those things to think about, avoiding negative content and things like that. So yes, and the answer is yes, no, and it all depends.
This is interesting. Are any of those bots, and how does one tell?
All right, well, this happens to be my area of expertise in computing. Some of them are bots, there's no question about it, or worse yet, scams. And if you have any suspicions at all, you probably want to start using Google to look for like the specific text or content of that. And if it starts coming up, yes, like the grand piano scam, for example, that I know that Elizabeth has sent out about. If you start seeing hits going, this has happened to me, this has happened to me, you probably want to start thinking, maybe I don't want to put this on the website. You might want to reply back to the person and ask them a question that a bot would not know.
Good
you know,
question.
if they say they're an organist and they don't know, for example, and just say, I'm sorry, but we've had some content we don't understand. Can you please tell me how many ranks are in a mixture 4? And if the answer comes back 1, probably don't want to accept contact from that person.
Good answer. Actually, James Thomashower has one, and this is again talking about hits. Can you see can you see stats on the number of hits on specific links on specific web pages?
Absolutely.
Okay, James. Well, that was a good answer.
It was short.
Okay, here's one. We had a website with an invaluable gallery of organs recorded. However, the website manager later moved on and says he has no way to get us into the website to update or add information. How do we get around the original website to update and develop further? Boy, have I heard that, you know.
Harold, I think this is for you.
I'm dealing with this exact same situation right now. So you need to go to your hosting company and say, we have this problem, and see what their policies are, because people die, people get disaffected, people just don't want to deal with it anymore for any number of reasons. And you've got to have a policy that does for that. Be prepared to jump through some hoops.
You are so correct. It took one chapter, I think almost 6 weeks, to finally get the password to get into their website.
And my response to that is that short.
Well, and if I may, I would also recommend that if you have anything that needs to be accessed by various members, you know, say part of being on the board is keeping track of passwords for the websites and the email address, you know, and if you get a new member on the board or someone leaves the board, then change the password. And then that is the password to get into any sort of password protected items. Under some circumstances, you have things like two-factor authentication. So if you log in and it'll say, can we send you a text message to this phone number? You might be running into some issues there if you have somebody that falls off. But again, what Harold says is going over to that company and revisiting their policies and seeing if that's something that you can do. But I would highly recommend having some sort of a password spreadsheet, if you will.
So one of the things we do as a technology committee is advise chapters on such items. If you have that kind of question, please feel free to reach out and we'll see what we can do to help you.
Thank you so much. We talked about this the other day when we had our rehearsal, and many chapters think this is a good idea, and there are many chapters that don't. So this is an open conversation. Sometimes I often don't receive all newsletters from our 280 chapters. So I'll go to the website thinking that I might be able to find the most recent newsletter up there. Sometimes I do see newsletters, but they might be from 2019. The other thing would be that it will ask you to log in and they don't want to share their information. I personally think it's a great way to brand your chapter and garner more interest from others that are kind of surfing around and saying, let me find out a little bit more about this chapter. I think being able to read a newsletter can be a very interesting and very beneficial thing, but it would be interesting to hear from you both how you think about that.
So the times you really want to put something behind a password is if there's personally identifiable information in the newsletter, like email addresses or phone numbers of chapter officers, perhaps photographs that people wouldn't want to go out. I mean, we don't do anything inappropriate here, but there are sometimes people just don't want to have their image blasted all over creation. And in that case, that might be an acceptable time. But if there's nothing like that in your newsletter, I'm going to agree with you, Elizabeth, that these are great ways of advertising your chapter and increasing engagement with the guild. I personally think that if you've got stuff in your newsletter you don't want everybody to see, don't put that in your newsletter.
Right. Well, someone's just commented some chapters don't put their newsletters online because they want to restrict information about job postings to those who are members. Okay, well.
Yes. And like for my specific chapter, so we have a newsletter and we don't post the archival copies of the newsletter. We don't put it on the website. But we do have some password protected information that we put in the newsletter. And so they're able to use that. We have the password to get into the password protected things listed on our newsletter, as well as email addresses. But we do have lots of other information on our website. And so if you did something like that, then yeah, I wouldn't put any public archives of the newsletter up there. But again, if you had any sort of information that was not identifiable, you can post the names of your board members, but don't post their email addresses, things like that, then I would go ahead and put the archives on there, and I think it would be useful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we may be just about through with the questions. I want to thank you both. And I don't know if, Michelle, you said this in the beginning or when we were in rehearsal or not, but I want everyone to know that I need to congratulate Michelle. She went through all 280 chapters, or every single chapter that had a website. My goodness, how fabulous that you did that. I mean, that is amazing. And I think we've all learned a lot here today. And I know that this recording is going to be sought after, and people are going to probably go back and back and back and back again, because you both shared such valuable information. And I think really covered everything that I've been getting tons and tons of questions about that I can't often answer. So I want to thank you both again. And I know that you are happy to answer any questions that any of our members may have in the future. And I know Michelle is going to have a handout that's going to go with the recording. She's sending me an updated handout.
Yes, and Elizabeth, I'm going to include my email address on there.
Okay.
I would encourage all chapter webmasters to go ahead and send me an email and say, you know, hey, take a look at our AGO page. What would you suggest that we do? If you would, you know, add, change, delete, modify anything, I'd be happy to take a look at more.
That's wonderful. How free consultation. What more could you want from a peer who is so knowledgeable about the subject?
I love giving my opinion.
I would also say my email address is on the Guild's website, where I'm sure it's responsible for a portion of the spam I receive, but it's also, but it is also responsible for some great chapter contacts I've had over the past year, especially as people have been learning how to live in a world where you can't contact each other directly.
Yeah,
and I'm more than willing to consult with chapters and see if we can help you get a good website up.
I have to say the technology committee has been an incredible resource for so many of us, so many of our members that have had to deal with streaming and recording and all kinds of things that 12, 14 months ago, it never occurred to them that they'd even need to encounter. So kudos, 3 cheers for the AGO Technology Committee. And I would be remiss if I didn't do a little promo for our upcoming webinars. So next week on Monday, May 3rd, we have a webinar on robust chapter scholarships that's hosted by the Task Force for Gender Equity. And you're really going to hear from a panel of chapter leaders who have successful scholarship programs. Some of them have institutes. Learn how they promote their programs and discuss opportunities to maybe include more female organists in the scholarship programs. And then on Thursday, May 6th, both of these take place at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then next Thursday, we have presented by John Dixon, AGO Counselor for Finance, and it will also be moderated by AGO Executive Director James Thomashour. The title is very intriguing to me. There must be 50 ways to raise some money. So this webinar is really going to be looking beyond the walls of your chapter to assist chapter leaders in support programs and activities that can really help them grow their funds. So you can register for both of these programs under our education tab. There's a subpage for upcoming webinars, and you can there are links there to register. And as I said, once this recording is up, there's another subpage that will have Michelle's handout again under past AGO webinars and recordings. And if you haven't taken a look at that page, I suggest you do. A lot of chapters are using these webinars for monthly programs. There's some wonderful, wonderful webinars there. So I have a feeling this one might be one that they're going to use in the future. So I'm just going to end by saying thank you again to Michelle and to Harold and to all of you who attended and for posting such great questions. So stay safe, stay well, and I hope I see you next Monday. Thank you so much.